So guys, there are two questions that I wanted to discuss with you on behalf of my viewers. So there are two people who asked me these two critical questions, but unfortunately I didn't have the answer, so I had to do this video so that I can ask answers from you. I know most people who watch our videos, they are very experienced in their own fields. So if you have an answer to one of these two questions that we are going to discuss here, please share your answers in the comment section below, or just share what is your view, because there is this one question that someone asked me. In this Nairobi, so many taxi drivers are requested to drop children to school or pick children from school and drop them home. And most of these children, by the way, they are minors. They are very, very young. Children even of the age of 3 years, 3.5 years. Children in playgroup. Their parents, because they don't have time, they request a random taxi driver through Uber, through Bolt, to either pick the child from school or drop the child to school from home. And there is a taxi driver who asked me, Mr. Explore TV, which age do you think is too young for a child to be carried by a taxi driver without being accompanied? We know that maybe in the road transport sector, this law is not as clear as, you know, in flying or in the air transport. If a child is less than 12 years old, they cannot fly alone. You cannot take a plane from Nairobi to Mombasa if you are not accompanied, if your age is less than 12 years. But in the road sector, this thing is not very, very clear. We have had stories of children of the age of 7 years, 8 years, being paid for transport, and they just take the matatu themselves all the way from Nairobi to Bungoma. Some get to their destinations, but we have had stories of children who disappear along the way. But now when it comes to this school-going children, and it is only that child and the taxi driver in the vehicle. You know, at least for the matatu, if you put your child in the matatu, you know at least there are 10 more people inside. So you don't fear so much of exposing your child, you know, to having to deal with only one person. But here we are saying a child of 3 years, should that child be accompanied in your view? Okay? And if there is something that the law says about accompanying minors and children while using road transport, especially the taxi, because there is this issue that happened, you know, a taxi driver picked a child from school. The child was very, very small. Okay, I think she was around 3.5 years. And the house help was supposed to receive that child once the driver is within the compound. So the driver tried to call the house help. The house help did not pick the phone. The driver waited with the child in his vehicle for almost 30 minutes. And he was getting a bit anxious. He was getting a bit, you know, he was, how can I say, he was losing patience because he wanted to continue doing his business. So after 30 minutes, the house help picked the call and told the driver to drop the child at a nearest shop, and then the lady would pass by and pick the child. Okay, remember, this child does not belong to this house help. And when the house help tells the driver to drop the child at the shop, you are not even sure whether that shop has any good, you know, relationship with the child, or whether the owner of the shop even knows the child, or even the parents of the child know actually who is the owner of the shop. But because the guy was in a hurry, the driver, he had to do exactly that. But fortunately, it happened that the house help did not have any bad intentions. She was just late where she was, and she did not want the mother of the child to know that she was not around. So the driver had to drop the child at the shop. So after, I think, some few minutes after the driver had left, the house help called and said that she has successfully picked the child. So imagine if anything bad had happened to that child, to what extent would that driver be liable? You know, these are questions and things that we are not really aware of, because I was reading an article about the laws in the UK, and it says that when a child gets into a taxi, the taxi driver is completely liable and responsible for the safety of that child. If that child is not received by the intended recipient, in this case the house help, it doesn't matter where you drop that child. If that child does not get home, it is the responsibility of that driver to be held accountable. And I think these are things that we have done them so casually, and drivers who have gone through this stuff, they can tell you it is not easy. If something goes wrong, I think the driver is completely responsible about what happens to children and minors. So guys, tell me, what do you think? What is the youngest age that a minor should be allowed to travel alone in a taxi? Okay, so there was this other issue about carrying people who are not feeling well. Okay, because there is a lady who had done a video. She was requested by someone to go and pick a person who was not feeling well from home. Okay, so the person who requested the trip was actually not going to accompany the sick person inside the taxi. So the guy went, it was a lady actually, she went to pick the person, but she found that the person who requested was not actually the one traveling, but the one traveling is a sick person. So the sick person was put into the taxi. She could speak, she could coordinate the sick person, but getting closer to the destination, I think the person collapsed. Okay, so she was unable to coordinate her thoughts, she was unable to speak, she was unable actually to say exactly which is her apartment, but the pin was indicating that they are getting close there. So the driver to that patient was now wondering, what do I do? The pin is showing that we have arrived. The person that I was carrying is now completely unwell, cannot even speak, cannot even take herself out of the vehicle. But the taxi driver was aware that when he was picking the patient was actually unwell, because literally is a patient. Okay, but the driver never thought that it would get that bad. So my question to you here are two. Should a taxi driver carry someone who is not feeling well without being accompanied? Okay, and when that person collapses, or that patient, the situation gets worse when they are inside your vehicle, what should you do? Because anything you choose to do, remember, you will be held liable. You will be responsible for the life or safety of the person you are carrying. So this taxi driver, when that person collapsed in their vehicle, you know what they did? They took them to the police station. And that video actually is online. And people said that that driver was not sharp. The driver was not smart to know the right thing to do. But what do you guys think? What is the right thing to do? People said that the driver could have rushed that sorry, should have rushed that patient to the hospital. But the driver did not know. He felt that going to the police station is actually safer, because everything will be recorded there. The person is still on the trip. The trip on the app is still active. So it was a bit easier. So upon arrival to the police station, they decided very quickly that iko sawa? Sawa, acha nikuje niangalie. So upon arrival at the police station, he was advised very quickly, accompanied by a police, to take the patient to the hospital, but they took a lot of details, okay, upon that trip, and immediately the patient was taken to the hospital. So in that case, if someone falls sick into your hospital, should you even try to give them first aid? You as a driver who is actually incompetent in first aid strategies. So guys, share with us your comments, help a driver, so that if these things happen, our people will know what to do. Cheers, and see you in my next video.